So we're here discussing the Waterfront Development matter that's now in arbitration. I think it's going before the Supreme Court on November, when is it, the 16th or 17th?
Yeah, it's actually been stayed pending the outcome of the hearing that's scheduled for the 17th of November. Yeah.
Okay, and so on the 17th of November, the government has actually sought, and this was an action, to be clear, that was initiated by the One Bermuda Alliance government on the date of the election.
That's correct, yeah.
And so whether somebody got a hunch that they may win the election by some miraculous...
Yeah. I find it quite strange too that this summons, originating summons, was issued on that date. This is the originating summons here. Signed by Melody and Martin on the date of the election, July 18th, 2017.
So on the date that the people of Bermuda would have been going to the polls to decide the next government, one of the last acts of the One Bermuda Alliance government was to attempt to strike out your matter because you're now in an impecunious position, and they're seeking to ensure that the property is not only taken away from you, but that you're not compensated for it.
Yeah. I mean, they might say that, look, they were doing business as normal. It don't matter which government is in place, and they sort of government run seamless. But obviously, I find it strange that it'll be on the date of the election.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been about 4 years since this whole debacle.
And it actually wasn't served on my attorney. It was served on my corporate office.
Okay.
So I find that even strange as well. But because no document had ever been served to the corporate office.
In the length of that 4-year period.
Exactly. Not one.
And so now we are in a period of where it's been 4 years, and it's still ambiguous as to what's going to happen with you.
Yes.
You're still out of pocket for the expenses of which you paid, despite numerous undertakings, despite letters being written by the previous administration undertaking to compensate for your actual losses to date. And so this matter, as one writer puts it, is just lying out there like a mackerel on a dock, laying in the moonlight, stinking while it shines. And it just really begs the question as to what is holding this matter up. Why have this government switched up on you? And we don't have an answer to it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things can come to mind on, from the cost of it, the rationale behind avoiding, and now who pulls your strings, as you alluded to earlier, on whether or not this matter is resolved. But how it gets resolved is, it's who's in charge of making those decisions.
And so at this juncture right now, what is your message to the people of Bermuda regarding this? Obviously they're familiar with the history of the waterfront matter. Now they're aware of various niceties of the details surrounding it to date. They're aware that no action has been taking place. Essentially the same people that would have been around your office gathering information from you, using that in Parliament, propagating that during the election, have now essentially said it's not advisable that we're in touch with each other. We no longer know you.
Yeah, that's quoted a text message from the Premier David Burt. Yes, that's sort of what he's, not sort of, that's exactly what he's written in an email, on a text message rather. It's strange, Aaron. It's disheartening. You think that people are with you, and you're supporting a cause that's for the better of everyone, and you support people that you think that align with that cause. And when you see, when they get in a position to right the wrong, they don't take that opportunity, or they don't follow through with their words.
Do you think it's fair? Do you think people are fearful of action, fearful of perceptions of others that may not have ever supported the Progressive Labour Party, and fearful of...
Fear is a hard one for me to measure, because I don't operate off of fear.
Well, we shouldn't.
Yeah, I operate off of principles. I operate off my gut. I operate off what my parents, my peers, my mentors in life have taught me, the lessons of life. I operate on those things, and I live by them. And sometimes I have to pay the consequences for those actions, or even for those thoughts in some cases. But those are the things I live by. So I don't really, I can't measure fear that well, because I've sort of trained myself And
well, fear inhibits decision making, you know, and as a government that is, you know, has decided that they're going to lead this country, we have to do so without fear, especially in the context of Bermuda, you know.
I think it'll be hard for one to be convinced that fear is driving the outcome of this decision, because there has to be something else underlying, because I can't see it being fear. I mean, we have an elected government that's 24 members of parliament. It's not like they can go to the House of Assembly and do something or not do something and be outvoted. So there's no risk in that. They have sort of, you know, unequivocal support of the majority of people in this country in their decisions.
Absolutely.
They've took a position. I think the people will support that same position, because, you know, I've had numerous people, not numerous, but thousands of people come to me in the street and ask me and express, you know, sort of their feeling and how they think that this is wrong. And they thought as well, leading up to the election and after the election, that the PLP would fix it, because, you know, they put it out there themselves that that's something that they would do. So people were expecting them to do it. So I can't write it off as fear that stops or prohibits them from making a decision.
And you know what, it is not your job, it is not the job of the people of Bermuda to guess why decisions are not being made, because we were elected on July 18, 2017 to lead and to lead without fear or favor, to make decisions without fear or favor, to look back, to never look back on the decisions. And that's what true leadership does. Nobody's ever going to like everything that you do. But I think that, you know, in the context of Bermuda, where we can evolve is being able to criticize things for what they are, on the merits of matter. Let's be able to judge things based on principles and ideologies. Let's be able to criticize principles and ideologies as opposed to persons and individuals. You know, we should never personalize issues. And so this matter for me isn't a personal issue. The names that have been called could have been somebody totally different. They are members of a party that I support wholeheartedly, members of a party in which I advanced their position during the election. And I do believe that the Progressive Labour Party has the capability of leading this country forward. But what we cannot do, and we're not going to let it slide in the early innings, is go back on decisions that we had promised the people that we're going to do, because it speaks to credibility. The Progressive Labour Party government, and I was one of the members that advocated, listen, hold this government accountable. And we didn't just mean it in words when we said that we would hold this government accountable. And that's why we're here today, to hold this government accountable. This is not an attack on any individual. This is not an attack on the Progressive Labour Party. This is letting the Progressive Labour Party know, letting our government know that, listen, we will hold you accountable. You must right the wrongs of the past. You must be doing what you said that you would do. And this is but one matter. And the people listening will be concerned that, listen, if they will do that to him, they will do it to me. And we do not want an environment specifically for young people where they feel as though we're just political pawns in this game, where people will advance their political and personal agendas at our expense.
No, you asked me earlier, and I didn't get a chance to ask how I feel regarding the position of, you know, the PLP has taken, and how, you know, what I would say to someone or say to the public. I can't remember the exact question.
Essentially, it was, what would be, you know, you've experienced this for 4 years, 5 years. We can't imagine the personal crisis that this has caused, the emotional crisis for your family, not let alone your business, the employees you've had to let go, the business that is now non-existent, one that was, you know, previously an expanding business, one that was growing, and now it's depleted to nothing. You know, what would be your words to the people of Bermuda having experienced this?
You sort of look at the history of how this country has developed, and you want to ask yourself, are you still in that era where you could follow all of the rules, get yourself to a point where you can compete with people on a fair playing field, and have the rules change on you or have things put in front of you that make it impossible for you to win. That's the thing that's the worst, because I have children. I mean, I'm sort of past that age now where they say it's half your life. And I think of all the young people that's coming along like yourself, you know, ambitious, and you know, and I wish people like you well, and I love to see that. Like I like to support that, because I think ambition is a good thing if it, you know, if it's measured. And you used the word fear earlier. That's somewhere where I would use fear now, because I would say, and you know, that if you graduate from university and you come back into an environment where you can be all the best, or all Aaron can be, but yet you're gonna be limited in what you can do, the question I would have to ask myself is, why would you want to put yourself in that environment if you know that you're capable of that? And my example speaks to that, because here I am, you know, a person that built my business despite whatever obstacles I had to pass. I built my business, worked hard, and I go and sign a contract, which I was proud and happy to sign, and everyone around me was as well, that I had accomplished this, because it was an accomplishment. It wasn't something that, you know, that fell in my lap. Me and my team had to work very hard to put this thing together, and we spent a lot of time and a lot of money to get it to where it was, to be the successful proposal. And with all of that, you know, and you achieve it, then you say to yourself, overnight or by the stroke of a pen, this can be stripped away from you. It leads me now to wonder, what is there for my kids and for the generation that's coming along? If they develop beyond what somebody thinks that they should, are they going to be pushed back or held back or undermined in some way so that they can't reach their full potential? And that, to me, is something is wrong with that.
And that's particularly the interest which I seek to advance, is that we have young people that are watching. They're listening to our leaders, and particularly at the last election, we had an overwhelming support from young Bermudians, to which the Progressive Labour Party is eternally grateful, which we should be eternally grateful for, because if it was not for their support, if it wasn't for their hard work, and if it wasn't for their bold stand that they took on the 17th of July or the 18th of July 2017, the Progressive Labour Party would not be the government. And I have to thank them for their trust that they placed in this government. Now, with that trust, we owe the young people of this country, we owe the people of this country a great deal of gratitude. And that gratitude cannot be expressed in the form of words alone, but only by deed, only by real, meaningful, lasting action. And these matters like this, matters like yours, concern me when you have elected officials. And I don't care if we're brethren, we're cool, you know, we're on the same party. Accountability is accountability. And that's the type of future that we're paving for young people. A Bermuda in which it does not matter if we're on the same team, we will hold you accountable. And that's the type of Bermuda that we need, because that is only where we'll be able to succeed, is when we can have those checks and balances and say, hey, listen, what are you doing here? And that's what we're here to do, to call wrong out when wrong is being done, and hope and pray and fight for this government to do what is right.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to advance that position. If not for us, then what does the future of our children stand? We don't want a position, and particularly for me, I don't want the position in which young people are hearing about these matters. They see you fall by the wayside. They see that, you know, promises have been made to you. They see that I'm a part of a machinery that has advanced the position. And I did so. We worked hard this summer, and we advanced that position. And I said to young people, listen, we will get the job done. And I'll tell you what, if it ever is a split between politicians and the people of this country, I will stand with the people, and we will hold the politicians accountable, because that's what they've been elected to do. That's what I promised young people when I was out there on the doorstep. Hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. And this is but one matter, you know. So with respect to young people, they may say, well, no, this doesn't affect me. It is the manner in which it has been held, the principles that have been neglected, you know, the honesty and transparency, or the lack thereof, that this matter, you know, it makes abundantly clear that, you know, it's lacking these things.
And I think it affects everybody because, you know, again, you have a situation where, you know, something like this takes place. It sets a precedent going forward. Like it's not something that anyone could say it don't affect them. Like we're not talking about, you know, somebody not being able to get a permit for a truck at TCD. You know, we're talking about property rights. Like
no, absolutely, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And now, you know, it's the timing of it all. You know, yesterday we learned of the Paradise Papers, in which now, you know, our tax structure, our whole economic and finance structure is going to be under intense scrutiny from the world media. You know, and do we want to send a message to potential investors, to potential developers, that this is how we treat our own? Because they will not invest if they think.
And what gives young people, you know, the ambition when take this case and you compare it to the airport? And you know, I don't know too much about the airport, and I'm not this way or that way on it, but you know, here, I mean, everyone's heard it. You heard how the contracts was signed and how Aecon got their contract in place, and then this situation, and you compare the two, and you know, you hear politicians and, you know, talk show hosts and all the rest saying that contract can be broken because, you know, how much money the government will have to pay and all the rest. That's a contract, you know, which I know and the public knows, never went through a bid process, and it was awarded to somebody without a bid process. This went through a bid process. There were other contenders that I had to compete against to win this proposal. I went through this fair and square. I won the proposal. I get nothing. Somebody else gets awarded a contract without a bid process, and they get to continue.
And that's the thing, is right now, this government cannot operate in such random and arbitrary manners, reneging on contractual and commercial arrangements, because what does that do for our international reputation?
And young people that have ambition,
What does it do for the young people that are sitting there saying, I work hard all my life to build something, and I'm competing with the best of the best, and overnight with the stroke of a pen, with votes in parliament, retroactive legislation can be in place and I can be stripped of it. Worse than that, now they're trying to say that you cannot even be compensated of it. And that should concern all Bermudians, you know, and you know, we have to do something about this. The Progressive Labour Party has to do something about it. I encourage all of our members to consult your MP. See what their stance on this matter is. Fact check this with the Premier and Minister Walton Brown. You've heard the disclosures that have been made during the course of this discussion. Ask them about it. What are they doing about this? Because it goes to the heart of integrity. It goes to the heart of whether they are credible, whether they will stand to scrutiny, whether they will do what they said that they would do. And that stretches not just for this matter, but the plethora of matters, and we're 3 months into this campaign. And that's why some may say, well, it's too early, you know, give time, you know, and when you have time, you waste time.
Well, and if you were to raise that specifically in my case, I would say, well, then they should delay their, you know, the court hearing and get to understand this matter worse. But that's not the case. They're still pursuing the case, not going in the opposite direction. They're going in the same vein that the NBA was going in. So it's not a case of whether they need time or not. It's a case of why are they doing what they're doing after they said that, or they spoke something completely opposite to what they're doing now.
When I say time, I mean time to criticize them. And what I'm saying is that, no, we're not going to waste time holding you accountable. We're starting off right. We will hold you accountable, and this is how the next 5 years will be. We will hold you accountable on every matter, because that's what the people of Bermuda deserve, and nothing less. They deserve to be in the loop, to understand that their elected officials are acting in an honest and transparent manner. They deserve to believe and see to it that the wrongs of the past are righted, They deserve to understand how the matters are being dealt with. And listen, we have public access to information, you know, and we understand, particularly with this matter, that a number of requests have been made, particularly with emails, particularly with circumventing that legislation with some of the parties named during the course of this discussion. And the people of